I'm just about ready to start here on the wing. We got the wing out. This is my second set of plans. I got this printed at the same time. I intend on cutting the ribs out and use that as templates. Went by my hobby store, and I got the wood that I need. Converted it from inches to metric. With a little bit of ply. I think it's some 1.5 and some 2.5 light ply. He doesn't have the aircraft grade birch ply, and I don't think that's even available in Taiwan as far as I've been able to find. So I'm using a little bit of light ply. And then I also got some carbon fiber. I plan on using some carbon fiber in this build. I'm going to substitute for example, like the firewall and some formers. I'm going to substitute the aircraft birch ply with some balsa and carbon fiber sandwich. Now this carbon fiber is a little bit heavier than what I wanted, but it's the only carbon fiber he had, and I think it's about the only carbon fiber they have in Taiwan. We've looked it up online, and I only saw, I think it was 5K. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to try to use it. I also have some carbon fiber veil that I might try as well. So let's get started working on the wings. So the first thing I'll show you is how the designer does his ailerons. What the designer uses, he has his rib come back to the trailing edge, puts blocks in a balsa trailing edge. Then he uses a little kind of a stubby rib and then finishes it up with, looks like just a wedge of balsa. A lot like solid balsa strip ailerons. I don't particularly like that design. I think I can make it lighter. Also, I'm not going to be slanting the leading edge like is done with the design. I'm going to have a rounded leading edge. So all that to say that I need to create a rib for the aileron. Let me start adding in some ailerons to these ribs. Now I'm marking to the outside line. I'm going to mark to the outside of these lines. They're fairly thick. They're about 1/16 of an inch thick. And that gives me a little bit of room for sanding, a little bit extra meat for sanding and shaping if necessary. Let's check to see if the root rib is going to line up. It goes into a notch in the leading edge, which is right about there, and comes back, and that looks pretty doggone good. This part back here actually gets flattened out, cut away, but I think that's actually pretty good. We'll get a better idea after we cut out R2. All right, R2. Let's check it against the plan. It's going to go into a notch right about there. Right here is about where the rib ends, so a little bit short of the whole wing. Now, keep in mind that this is just the rib. It doesn't include the sheeting. The sheeting is, the plan is 3/32. I think I'm using 2mm. When you add that, it's going to come very close in. I think it's going to end up still being a little bit short, but it comes pretty doggone close. And that's pretty good for these hand-drawn plans. So let me go ahead and finish cutting out R3 through R12 and we'll come back. Okay, our ribs are cut out. I only need to make one set of ribs and then I'll double up the balsa when I cut it out. So we have all 12 of them. And looks like I did some good measuring. I put little tick marks. Let's see, right there's tick mark, and as you can see, the ribs with the ailerons added come to the tick mark, so that's good. Now I need to, well, this wing is built with the jig, or on a jig, according to the instructions. You take 2 dowels and then run the dowels through all the wings, and that kind of supports the ribs as you build the wing. There's no tabs, so I guess I'll do it this way. I'm not sure if I've ever done it that way before. You end up putting the 2 jig dowels, I think you rest them on a couple of blocks and screw the blocks together, and that holds the right separation for the wing. So the next thing for me to do is to come up with some blocks and make sure I get the right size. They need to be exact so I don't introduce any sort of twist. Speaking of that, I haven't really noticed any washout in the plan. I don't recall reading in the article, so I don't know if there's really any washout in this wing. It wouldn't be too hard to do. Just take this bar, or the block that this bar would sit on, and just kind of raise it up a little bit as you build your wing, and that would naturally build in some washout. I guess I need to do some geometry and see how much to raise up this tip in for some washout. The plans call for all ribs being 3/32 inch balsa. And I did end up getting some 2.5 mm balsa, which is equivalent to 3/32. But looking at the thickness of the 2.5 mm balsa, I think that's a little bit overkill, to tell you the truth. So I'm going to kind of go with half of the wing at 3/32 inch balsa, or 2.5 mm. These ribs right here. And then for the outer ones, which would just be the ailerons out to the tip, I'm going to go with 2 mm. 2 mm is between 1/16 of an inch and 3/32 of an inch. So I save a little bit of weight that way. And I think it'll be just as strong. So I've started to lay out my wing ribs on some balsa sheet. I'll take some paper glue stick and glue these down to one sheet of balsa, and then I'm going to tack glue another sheet of balsa to each one of them, since there are obviously 2 sets of ribs, one for each wing. These are ribs 1 through 7, which are the 3/32 of an inch or 2.5 millimeter balsa. We'll set these up first, just using the glue stick. The paper on which the plans are printed is very nice. It was expensive, but it's a heavyweight paper. It has a smooth, shiny surface, and it's very stable, which is important for building from plans. It accepts the glue stick well, but more importantly, it comes off cleanly from the balsa after the ribs are shaped. Now that I have the templates glued in, I'm going to glue 2 pieces together. There'll just be a drop in a couple of spots, which I think will be good enough. plans call for using a jig of two, I think it's 1/4-inch dowels that go through the holes in each of these ribs. I'm going to use a 6 mm carbon fiber tube. I think that will support the ribs a little bit better. And I'll also have some supports underneath in a few spots. But the real secret, or the real key to making this jig work, is to get these holes drilled exactly right. I've always found that to be difficult to do. So what I'm doing here, I'm just taking I guess this is a brad point bit. Anyway, I'm going to use just the bit by hand to get it started. And then once I get the point started, I'll take it over to the drill press and finish drilling it. All right, that looks good. So what I have here, just 2 points here and here, and then I can go to the drill press and I can just line my point back up again and hopefully get these holes drilled just right. If the holes aren't drilled right, the jig doesn't do you much good. Next time we'll start framing the wing up. If you were asked about making a 3-piece wing, having a fixed center section and then having 2 outer wing panels that plug in, and I've taken kind of a cursory look at it, and I think it would actually work pretty well. I think it could be done. I haven't really studied it outright, but this is a carbon tube from some other model that I had. And this is showing, let's call this the front view of the wing. The nice thing about this wing is it has a flat top. So I think it would be easy enough for alignment purposes with this top wing to just be able to measure down from the top wing down to the wing tube. And you could do that through all the ribs. You would probably only need ribs 1 through maybe 5. Ribs 1 and 2, this would be the fuselage. This line right here is a dash line, which represents where the fuselage side is. So this would be the fuselage, and then you could have the tube go through 3, 4, and 5. So you'd have 3 ribs with the wing tube. So then it would just be a matter of measuring how the distance you want down to the tube, and then measuring a common point. I would probably use the spar notches. That would be common for everything. And, place your position where you want your holes to be. Now, to actually drill the hole and make sure that they're all in alignment, I think I would take, let's just call it rib 1 through 5, these 4 and rib 5, and I would gang them all together, and then use the spar, use some hardwood or some Balsa or something to just gang them together and use that as an alignment, and then you could drill your hole wherever you decided. If you chose to place your wing tube in alignment with the top of the wing, then you would need to align your wing ribs together along the top of the ribs, unlike in this photo where they're aligned based on the wing jig. But that would only be for drilling the holes for the wing tube. That would not be for building the wing. Now, the one thing about these wing tubes, I've read where some think that the tube should be part of the spar. And in this case, you could probably do it easily with the top spar. Remember, this wing, the bottom is going to angle upwards. So it would be easiest to do with the top spar alone. Bottom would be a little bit trickier. So you could tie it in together. You could tie in the tube with at least the top spar, maybe even the spar joiner. Spar joiner just covers this section right here. And then I think that's actually quite doable. When you drill your holes, you could probably be pretty exact. But I did this with a top flight Cessna 182, and I'll try to show you right here what I did. I have a top flight Cessna 182 that's been in progress for a few years. I wanted to change the wing design on that one. It was originally a one-piece wing, I believe, but I did not like the way it was attached to the fuselage. I wanted to have a more scale look of the center section blending into the fuselage, so I decided to go with a three-piece wing. I was really unsure as how to add that wing tube. I didn't have a good way of measuring for the outer panels given their dihedral. That's about a 1 degree dihedral in the outer wing panels. So what I did, I drilled the holes for the center section ribs for the wing tube exactly to fit. I just ganged them together and then drilled the hole. For the outer panel ribs, the center portion of the ribs had already been removed for lightning, therefore no additional holes needed to be drilled. Then I went back and made some ply doublers, which had the exact diameter of the wing tube. Then I kind of put everything together, put the center section on, the wings on with the wing tube, and once everything was in alignment, then I glued in those ply doublers, ensuring that the wing was aligned with the proper dihedral. So I would probably make the holes in the ribs slightly oversized, and then use some ply donuts where the inner diameter is the exact diameter of your tube. Something similar to this right here. This is basically what's happened here. This is a doubler that actually holds the wing tube. You could then glue your donut to your ribs, and that would give you, I think, a pretty nice joint. And that could account for any misalignment in the holes. So I think the wing part is actually quite doable. And let's take a quick look at the fuselage part of it. I think this is actually going to be pretty easy as well. There is a fuselage doubler. It basically rides along the front of the wing to here. It comes up, back to here, and then up here for this, the top part of the wing. And then there's a second doubler, which is on the outside. This is piece right here that runs along the outside. It runs all the way to the back. That thinner ply is on the inside. Well, I think what you could do actually pretty easily is just incorporate, say, ribs 1 and 2. Like rib 1 would be here, and rib 2 would probably be something like this. Incorporate that into the fuselage doubler, similar to what I did with the Seagull BF-109, where I converted the original one-piece wing into a three-piece wing. While it's not exactly the same, you can incorporate the wing rib profile into the fuselage ply doubler, making it all one piece. Go ahead and close in the belly pan and just make this all one solid unit. You could get rid of the ply mounting plates. You can get rid of the dowel up here, and you can just make this all one solid piece. The one thing you'd want to do before you did these ribs is get that hole, the holes drilled in where you want your wing tubes. So I would probably build the wing first and include these ribs in building the wing. And then as you build your fuselage, you could kind of marry up your wing to it and make sure the alignment all works. So I think it's doable.